You don't have much time here. I want you to read cautiously. Pick what you read carefully. Because whatever you put in your brain, that's what you become. It influences you. Reading influences your life, and you also influence your reading. So in this video, I'm going to explain three different types of readers, or three different levels of readers: the beginner, the competent reader, and then the expert reader. So, and then explain why is it so important that we read cautiously. As a beginner, you started reading lots of different nonfiction books and books that you were interested in, and you probably felt like, I can never get enough of this. Once you got a taste of it, you were just like, I want to learn more. So you just start reading almost anything and everything out there. And this is a good time in your life because you're exploring what you really want to learn about, what you really want to improve in your life. That's great. And it's a natural step in the process of reading and learning and implementing. Is just exploring anything and everything out there. But then you start to realize that some of the books that you're reading may not be all that good, or may not be related to what it is that you are personally trying to improve on in your life. And I'm specifically talking about like self-help books. These are very repetitive, and they're very repetitive for a reason. Of course, they want to get the point across to the reader, but you could probably summarize these takeaways in just a short amount of time. I'm not saying that self-help books are bad to read. They can definitely help you improve in your life, for sure. They helped me. I've read hundreds of them. When you get beyond a certain point, though, you start to find the same thread throughout these self-help books. And then you want to start digging deeper. And this is when you get into the competent stage. This is where you understand what specifically you want to work on, and you start narrowing your areas, narrowing the topics, narrowing the subjects, narrowing the types of books that you read. One of the key aspects to becoming a competent reader and beyond up to expert level is reading specifically what you're working on in your life right now, while you're still exploring and keeping your open mind to new topics. Because, well, in order to synthesize and create new things, we need to keep an open mind, branch out a bit. But yeah, like just taking, for example, right now I'm working on my Master's of Education thesis paper. And so I'm reading a bunch of books that are totally related to what I'm writing about, which is like the effective note taking, how that affects students, and combining that with reflective journaling, which is something that I haven't really seen before in the education field. Yes, both of those things are being practiced. So I'm reading a bunch of books on that topic, and then I'm experimenting with the students and seeing how that affects their learning, how that affects their retention, and their ability to synthesize information. So the key point here is to read what's relevant to you, but also stay open-minded to reading other things as well and learning about other things. And combining everything that we've talked about so far in this video, someone who reads a lot and reads widely, but not very specifically, is usually at the very beginning of stages. Someone who starts to narrow the focus on what they're reading and still read widely, that way can collect a bunch of different ideas, is a competent reader. And then the expert even narrows that further, but still reads widely and is able to synthesize information, is able to collect and categorize and organize relevant ideas, and then create new ideas out of those, to be able to implement ideas in a new way, not just regurgitate what others have written, but take those relevant gems and be able to apply those in their lives in a way that is recognizable by other people. And an expert may not be well known by a bunch of other people, and that's totally fine. An expert is just a person who is able to really take all that knowledge and categorize it in a way that is very useful for them. It's not just reading a book for the heck of it, just because it got a lot of great ratings on Goodreads or Amazon, or everyone's raving about it on Instagram or YouTube. An expert doesn't get fazed by those types of books. Not saying that the expert will not read that book. It just depends on the topic and whether that's relevant in their lives at this time. So you've really got to get specific with the types of books that you're reading. You really have to take care of your time, your money, your investment, because when you read a book that's not very relevant to what you're doing, then you're taking time away from time that could be spent on a book that's going to actually really help you out. So be cautious with the books that you pick. Pick ones that are very relevant. And then, of course, pick ones that are very interesting. But if you don't like the book, an expert knows exactly when to stop. An expert's not going to waste time on a book that is irrelevant to them. Another last thing that I want to mention about reading cautiously is taking the time with the book that is a very good book. There are books out there that you could probably read in a couple days. And then there are books out there that might take 6 months to read, because you're taking the time that you need with that book to be able to take the notes that you need to be able to synthesize the information and reflect on it as much as you possibly can. And I think it's okay to read a book for like 6 months. There's some books that took me that long to read because I wanted to digest that information. And I think that's what experts really do, is they take the time that they need with the books that are actually applicable and useful and makes them think and makes them grow as a person. So the books that may only take a few days to read or a week to read or something like that, I'm not saying that there's no value in those, because once in a while I still personally pick up self-help books. And those usually don't take too long to read because the concepts are so easy to learn and actually, well, maybe not that easy to implement. Self-help books tend to be obvious advice, but it's still difficult to implement. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I still read self-help books. But something like this, I've showed this book, I know 3 times already. Something like this, I'm not going to read in a week. I'm not going to read in 3 weeks. It'd probably take me a month or so to read through this book and try to maybe implement and adapt some of the strategies in this book to my own liking. And I think that's another thing experts probably would do, is like adapt information from books, not taking the information word for word. And maybe that could be useful for doing that, but some information needs to be adapted to our own liking, right, in order to be effective for us. So as a review, beginners read almost anything because they're so excited to read. And that's a great momentum to carry on into the other stages of reading as well. And then a competent reader will narrow the types of books that they're reading and still read widely. An expert knows how to implement what they read, knows how to categorize the information in a system that is able to help them to synthesize what they've read And they also know when to read slowly and when to read quickly. So I hope this information has been extremely valuable for you. It's a topic that could definitely be expanded on. 11 minutes is probably not enough for this topic, but it is what it is for this video. And I hope it piques your interest, and maybe you end up taking some of this information and expanding on it, implementing it into your life. And I hope that you can become an expert reader as well, an expert learner, an expert synthesizer. So enjoy this video, like it, share it, and make sure you're subscribed. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.